loaded question. Let's talk a little bit more about that. And she got a call from a nice citizen who had heard something on a Kansas City radio station that they just didn't like and thought maybe that we should respond to it. And no offense to the media in the room, but sometimes you respond and sometimes you just let it go. And this was just the two talk show hosts chatting back and forth, and apparently basically said, well, why doesn't, if they've got budget problems in the state of Kansas, there's things they just need to get rid of, things that aren't very important. Like, for example, why do we need a Department of Agriculture? So at least there was at least one citizen out there who thought they needed to call us and tell us this, so that we could call back and yell at these nice guys on the radio. We chose not to. But the point itself carries a message of really, people don't understand what we do. They don't understand the value of agriculture in our state. They don't understand the importance, quite honestly, on a daily basis of the Department of Agriculture. So I just want to share with you a little bit about us and why we exist and some of the big things on our plate. We talk about our purpose as being to grow, serve, and promote the agricultural industry. That's why we exist. Agriculture is the biggest industry in our state, has the largest economic impact, nearly over 40% economic impact to the state of Kansas. If you include retail food and groceries, it's over 50% of our economic well-being in our state comes from the agricultural industry. And you'll hear it regularly, all the time. People will talk about, oh no, agriculture is just 2%. It can be narrow if all you think about the fact is that there's grain growing in a field or a cow standing in a pasture. But when you really think about the breadth of agriculture, our state is highly dependent on the success and prosperity of the agricultural industry. So we see our purpose as very simple. Our vision is that Kansas is the ideal environment for long-term sustainable agricultural prosperity and statewide economic growth. We believe that it is our job as an agency to help lead our state to create the best environment possible for agricultural growth. And that means thinking about the things we do every day, as well as getting engaged in things that other people do that impact the agricultural industry. But understanding that if we do that, that we have a positive long-term impact on the statewide economy, and we think that's very important. And that leads us to our mission, and our mission is really where we ask our employees to focus on a daily basis. And we have 4 parts of our mission. First and foremost, our mission is to serve. And it seems to me fairly simple that if you were to ask any cabinet agency secretary from any state in the country, if they walked up to this podium and you said, what is the first and most important thing you do? If they don't start with the word service, to us, they are missing the point. The point of the state government, the point of our state agency is to serve the citizens of Kansas. And for us, that is very much focused on farmers and ranchers and agribusinesses and the customers and the citizens and the clients that they serve. Now, I want you to think about that for just a second. Farmers, ranchers, agribusinesses, and the customers and the clients that they serve. That's every single person in Kansas. We are a unique agency in that we focus on a specific industry, but yet at the same time, our specific industry not only impacts every Kansan, but people all over the country and across the globe. So we believe our job is to start first with service. And that means providing timely customer service to the people who need things from our agency. It means thinking ahead to how we can serve folks for the problems they haven't even seen or thought about. And most importantly, making people feel like we are welcome, that they're welcome and that we are approachable. So when they have challenges, that they can come to us as a place for help. And I said, that the biggest chunk of our employees are here in Manhattan. That's true when we talk about employees all being in one place. But the majority of our employees are actually field staff. And so that service mentality, being out and working across the state, working one-on-one with folks, is incredibly important. The second part of our mission is that it is our job to help create an environment for economic growth. It is our job to look for opportunities to break down barriers that keep agriculture from growing. It is our job to look for opportunities to create and enhance growth. And that's something that we take very seriously, and I'll talk a little bit more about a project we've been working on over the last year here in just a bit. The third part of our mission is that we have to advocate for agriculture. We're lucky to have a lot of great agricultural organizations headquartered here in Manhattan, and my friends at Farm Bureau are well known as being the voice of agriculture. But at the same time, we believe that if the state agency, if the State Department of Agriculture isn't a leading and loud voice advocating for agriculture on a regular basis, that we have again missed the point of why we exist. So we have really taken on a much stronger presence in the role of advocating for agriculture. And sometimes sometimes it may be simple things. Sometimes it might be correcting something that we hear that's incorrect, that we hear people talking about the importance of agriculture or something like that. Sometimes it might be really setting down, going nose to nose with some of our federal partners and talking about the efforts they're making and what we need to do to take a different approach that's better for the agricultural industry and thus in turn better for the citizens of our state. Maybe it's dealing with another state agency. But a lot of times it's just repeating what you've already heard me say over and over and over again, how important agriculture is to our state. When we first really started making that sort of a key message of everything that we said, which it seems like that shouldn't have been something we had to start, but realistically, or reality is that it was, the number of times someone would come up to me and say, well, you know, that's just not right. It's not the largest industry. Maybe it used to be, but it's not anymore. We feel like if today is the first time that you have heard that the agriculture is the largest industry in our state, we're not doing our job. And so probably the biggest piece of advocating is that we believe we just got to keep helping leaders understand how important agriculture that is, whether that's political leaders, community leaders across our state. And so we take that challenge very seriously and try to help others be a part of advocating for agriculture as well. And then the fourth part of our mission gets down to the breadth of our statutory and regulatory responsibilities. We have over 20 programs and divisions, and finding a way to talk about a mission that represents all of them is a bit challenging. And this fourth bullet gives you some insight into how much breadth there is amongst those programs. It is our job to help ensure that everyone's food is as safe as it possibly can be. It is our job to do everything we can to conserve natural resources and help people do the same. It is our job to help make sure consumers are protected through the things we do in programs like weights and measures. It is our job to make sure that public health is protected, and it is our job to help protect animal health. So if you just think about that, public health, animal health, food safety, conserving natural resources, consumer protection, and you think about the number of people in our state who think, oh, the Department of Agriculture doesn't impact me, they don't have a good understanding of what we do. When you look at everything, you know, people will typically, they're not surprised when they know meat and poultry and pesticide and fertilizer in the Department of Agriculture. What about the fact that food safety is the Department of Agriculture, and every place that you walk into where you purchase food, one of our inspectors is then and making sure that that place is safe. And when you think about any time you buy a product that's been weighed, or any time that you put fuel in your car, someone on our team has had the opportunity to make sure you're being protected as a consumer. So it's really important to us that we do those things well. But all of that while we are balancing those other 3 points. We need to execute our statutory and regulatory responsibilities while we are serving, while we are advocating, and while we are creating an environment for growth. If we regulate and create and do things statutorily that don't allow the industry to grow, that don't allow people to feel like they're being served, then we may be meeting the letter of the law, but we're really not meeting the reason that we exist, which is back to that purpose of growing and promoting and serving the agricultural industry. So that gives you a little bit of kind of what we talk about and what we think about when we come to work every day. And for me, one of the most exciting parts of my job, personally as secretary, has been really getting to know our staff. We have about 340 employees across the state. And over the last 2 years, I've had the opportunity to meet with every single one of those employees at least twice. And that is not something we've done before. I walked out into a field office about a year and a half ago, and one of the employees told me they'd worked with the agency for 16 years and they'd never seen a secretary. And I don't say this to say that I'm doing a good job. I say this to tell you how important it is to get people to understand the mission. And when we get out and we talk to our field staff and we help them understand what we expect of the mission, they buy in. We did a survey of our employees just this right about a year ago right now, and it was about a 4.1, I believe, on a 5-point scale, said that they understood their role in meeting our mission on a daily basis. And that's pretty important to us, because if I know that, then I know that the people they're working with are getting served because they know that as a part of our mission. So that's our drive as an agency, is to really institutionalize this concept of service and serving the agricultural industry, so that when this administration is over, the things that I'm talking to you about will continue to move forward. I do want to touch on a few things that really are leading the majority of our time right now. Don mentioned a few of those. One of those is water. I don't think I have been in a public setting anytime in the last 4 years in which I have not, at some point in that conversation, talked about water. The governor has a very strong understanding of our water needs in our state. When he served as Secretary of Agriculture, he had an Ogallala task force for the aquifer in western Kansas, and he'll tell you that he thought we did enough then. It's actually kind of a fun story. While I was a student at K-State, I was looking for an internship to do before I headed to A&M, and I decided to see if there was any opportunity at the Kansas, what was then the Board of Agriculture. So I interned for Sam Brownback when he was Secretary of Agriculture, and one of my tasks was staffing the Ogallala Task Force. And I spent the entire summer, many of you will remember this, summer of 1993, helping deal with the flood on the Kansas River and sandbagging just right up here, and then getting in a truck and driving to western Kansas and talking to them about the fact that they were running out of water. And I will tell you that summer, it's still yet a fluke that I ended up in that internship, but not only did it change my entire perspective about what our water needs were in our state and the incredible diversity of water needs in our state, I also tell you, if I had not done that internship, I wouldn't be standing here in this job today, because it would have never occurred to me that working in public service in a state agency in agriculture was something that might be a part of my calling. So it also goes back to the great opportunities that K-State students get to do internships, and we're proud to be a part of that. Really getting off topic right now, but we have about 25 students who work in our building, and that's been another great added benefit of being here in Manhattan that we're really excited about. So back to water. So we have, over the last 3.5 years now, been developing, implementing, executing the governor's water vision. If you haven't read it, it is a nice long document that talks about all different areas of water supply issues in the state. It is not intended to get into every issue of water quality, but it does focus on the fact that we need to have a reliable long-term water supply in the state of Kansas. That in itself is the vision, or is the mission. And the vision is that Kansans understand and want to become a part of that. So one of the things we're working on is how do we help people understand more about our water in our state. And you're going to start to see over the next year or two even more public outreach on water. Right now our focus has been on policy development. On the eastern side of the state, it's making sure our reservoirs can hold the supplies of water that we need them to. There's the first real reservoir that we needed to address was John Redmond, and it was dredged this past August, and that happened about 6 months ahead of schedule, I believe, and at our budget, so it was exciting to see that project move forward. And the place where I spent a lot of my time is working on Ogallala aquifer issues. I apparently didn't do a good enough job when I was an intern, because we're doing having some of the same conversations, but working on really the development of as many tools and resources as we can come up with so individual water owners can make the decisions they need to so they have long-term water supplies. We have some successful stories, local enhanced management area up in Sheridan County, where a group of farmers and ranchers and feedlot owners came together and reduced their water use and have already seen a over 25-year measurable impact on the Ogallala aquifer. We have another couple of LEMAs that are in process, but right now a lot of our focus has been on what we call water conservation areas, where an individual can say, I care about the long-term sustainability of my farm or my ranch, and I want my kids and their kids to be able to have water, so I'm going to cut now if the state will just give me a little bit of flexibility. It's basically a trade between flexibility amongst your water rights and reducing your overall water use, but doing it in a way that is fair to all. And we're having more and more success. We expect a large group in Wichita County to move forward with doing individual WCAs together, sort of their answer to a LEMA, but it allows each person to make the individual choices that they have. But there's a lot of people out there, and probably some in this room are like, you know, the only way you're going to solve the water problem is if you just cut it off, if you make it mandatory. But in Kansas, water rights are private property rights, and even making that claim probably just ends us up, and me and others, spending more time in a courtroom than actually getting out and doing something about solving the problem. So our approach and what we came up through the vision is really a focus on voluntary approaches. And we do see it's not moving as fast as any of us would like, but it is definitely moving forward. We have progress, and we've created a great team of people across the state that are working together through regional advisory committees and other groups to really move that project forward. And it's pretty exciting, and I think it is something that at the end of this term, people are going to realize how important it was to have a governor who understood the challenges facing water in the state. Another area that Don mentioned and I'll touch on is foreign animal disease preparedness. When we look at the importance of agriculture to our state and the incredible importance of the beef sector to Kansas, being prepared for things like foot and mouth disease are just at the top of the list. Again, it's back to me, it's pretty simple. If we're not doing that, we're not doing our job. We are, I believe, Texas would be a close second. They'll tell us they're first and we're a close second in preparation and exercising for a foot and mouth disease outbreak. We do, on an annual basis, multi-day actual functional exercises where we're sending people out in the field, they're taking blood tests, we're going through the whole process, we're working with the diagnostic lab here at the vet school, we're working with our federal partners to really test our system and our response. In fact, we've gotten to the point where we're pretty confident on what we do the next couple days. This year we tested days 3 through 5, and we learned a lot, and we will continue to do that. We want to be the best prepared state in the country. And there are decisions we have made that are different than other states. And hopefully this would never happen, but if there were ever an FMD presumptive positive case anywhere in North America, Kansas would, at this point, our policy is we would stop all travel of susceptible species. It would stop at our borders, it would stop in our state within about 12 to 15 hours of that announcement. That's a step further than any other state has gone. We think that is incredibly important because the first way of stopping disease spread is to be able to actually stop the movement of livestock. It seems, again, pretty simple, but it's scary. It's scary to people of what you do to markets. It's scary to people of what decisions you make. So we're really testing going that step further and really encouraging other states to join us in some of those efforts. So that's something that will continue to be a priority. You'll continue to see us work on, and if you hear me speak, you'll hear me continue to talk about because it is incredibly important. And then the last piece that I will touch on is what we have been doing the last year that we call our growth strategy. We have talked a lot over the last several years about breaking down major barriers to growth in agriculture. But what we start to look at is, so you talk about things like challenges of not enough workforce, or you talk about not having the right incentive packages in place, or you talk about communities not understanding agriculture. But agriculture is so broad. But what we found is we weren't making as much progress as we'd like if we didn't break it down and narrow in a little bit. So our goal was to identify 10 sectors that were important for growth in Kansas and really develop a strategic plan for each of those 10 sectors. We got our team together and we said, all right, let's go meet. And our team, over a 2-month period, maybe 2.5, held 250 meetings with Kansas agricultural leaders across the state, walked into their offices, their homes, their farms, their ranches, and said, tell me what you need to grow. What is keeping you from growth? We want to know. And ended up, by now, this was this summer, we've had nearly 500 meetings, I believe. It's certainly a large number. And our sectors that were 10 are now 20 because agriculture is really diverse in Kansas and there are a lot of places and a lot of opportunities for growth. Beef may be our biggest, but in a couple of counties, cotton may be exactly what they need for economic growth. We're not going to see cotton in Riley County, but there are places that want to grow cotton and they need some help to be able to make that happen. There are places that want to focus more on specialty crops and others that want to focus more on traditional products like wheat and corn, but then those folks are looking for additional value added opportunities for those products. That led us to holding our first, right here in Manhattan, Agricultural Growth Summit. We thought it would be a one-time thing just to have people come in and give us input on the strategies. Over 400 people showed up, not knowing exactly what they were coming to, had phenomenal feedback, telling us very clearly that this is something they wanted to do every year because it is the one and only time. And having grown up in agriculture, it never really occurred to me this way, is the one and only time that every single ag organization in Kansas was invited all to one place, all to talk about issues that impact all of them. So you had wheat leaders standing in the beef room and talking about those issues. You had folks from the dairy industry talking with the feed and forage folks. And it was really, really exciting, and it was really, I believe, going to lead to real progress and implementation of what we call our growth strategy. And that growth strategy, Heather's laughing at me because they've all been waiting on me to edit the last version, but I gave it back to her yesterday. So I am sure that it will be public here within the next couple of weeks. and really lays out a plan for growing our industry in our state. Back to the purpose that I started with, that our job is to serve, promote, and grow the agricultural industry. So we will have written plans for each of our agricultural sectors of the things that we will do together as an industry, not just our agency, to help grow that sector. And that's what you'll see us talking about a lot over 17 and 18. So with that, I believe that leaves about 6 or 7 minutes for some questions. If you all have any questions that you might want to ask, I'd be happy to answer them.
I understand that export of agricultural products is the primary need in Kansas, and its economy depends on that more than any other state in the union, is a recent statement by the press. What do you see for the next few years in that respect in Kansas? I know it's been faltering lately.
Well, part of what you see faltering is led by the fact that commodity prices are low. We're actually exporting more product. It's just commodity prices are low, so the value of those exports has declined. We have, just in the coming month alone, we have employees in Russia, Panama, Mexico, and one other country, just in our team. Just out of about 12 people are covering those 4 countries, because we're very engaged in working with our industry partners to continue to open markets and look for other opportunities. I do think we, like many others, will be waiting to see the direction of the new administration on trade policy. It is important that the agricultural industry has access to trade, and we're continuing to not only utilize the markets we have, but open new ones. It's especially important in the beef market, but it's important for everyone, and that is something that we are highly engaged with and will continue to be.
You just mentioned the new administration. When you get back to your office this afternoon, if President-elect Trump calls you and says, "What one thing can I do for your department?" what would be your response?
Move the USDA to Kansas. Think how many problems that could solve. I'm just saying. I think it would be, the big picture would probably be related to trade, to make sure as we move forward with trade policies that I understand the importance of protecting U.S. industries. I also believe it is important that we have the markets that we need for our largest industry. So that would be a part of it. And even though it would seem small in some degree, if I had the opportunity, you have to think about what you can actually influence. The one piece where I've been trying to have conversation is influencing how we will respond to an outbreak of something like FMD. Because that, to me, is something that someone like me could actually influence and make happen and change. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that would be, I could make a big list.
You have done an excellent job of telling us what the Department of Agriculture does. I have a little lighter, simple question. We traveled from here to Sharon Springs and back last week, and we were counting some fields of cedar trees that seemed to be a booming crop. And yesterday I got curious and I looked at the list of noxious weeds, and I saw thistles, and I saw multiflora roses, and I saw lespedeza, but I did not see cedar trees. Why not?
So that's an interesting, timely question. Right now, for a plant to get put on the noxious weed list, it takes a full vote of the legislature. We actually have a bill that would turn that into a scientific-based advisory committee that would report to the secretary, and the secretary could move things on and off of the noxious weed list. So part of the reasons you don't see changes in general on the noxious weed list is because it's just too cumbersome. So that's part of that answer. We just literally made the decision an hour and 15 minutes ago that we were going to go ahead and move that. As you can imagine, there are members of the legislature who like it, but there are many who don't. That changed. So we decided to go ahead and move that bill forward with support of some of the ag organizations. The other thing I'll just touch on cedar trees though, the fires in south central Kansas last spring, I guess, those cedar trees were a major reason that fire burned so hot and was so difficult to get out. And we have continued to work through our Division of Conservation with folks who want to remove both salt cedars and red cedars, and so which are two totally different kinds of things. Growing up in southeast Kansas, ours are different. So I learned a lot about cedars. And just last week, we were out in St. Francis, Kansas, and we've been working hard on interstate water issues to get them some water flow out of Colorado in the South Fork of the Republican River. They have a volunteer group who said, well, we came up with some grant money to help remove salt cedars. So if you're gonna get more water down the Republican, we want it to flow. And so we've found some matching funds to help match that with them. So we are trying to work on the local level through the local conservation districts to help with some removal plans. So that's a different part of your question, but it's something that we think is important.
One more question. John?
Okay.
What is your department doing to help Jared Green in his efforts?
Sure. Well, first of all, I have an employee on my team, my assistant secretary, Susan Metzger, who is, grew up in a military family, moved around the country in a military family, and has been very active in working with volunteer roles with Fort Riley. So when she learned about this project, she said, can I please be on this project? So I said, sure, and she is serving on the board. And we are right now, and I can't tell you exactly where it is in the process. It may actually already be entered, or it's something we're working on doing some grant work, a grant proposal with them. And I know, is it Saturday, that you have an intern? Oh, it was today, where we sent an intern to help share, do some public relations work with the donation they received today. And so Heather's working to make sure that all gets on Facebook and those kind of things. So we are engaged in that project. We don't necessarily have a formal role. We do have a seat on the board, and then are highly engaged with it.